before we begin, I just want to let you all know that this session is being recorded. So if you are comfortable in being in the recording of this session, you can keep your videos on and you can raise your hand and ask your question by unmuting yourself. But if you are not comfortable in being in the recording, you can keep your videos off and you can put your questions in chat or send it as a DM to either one of us here on the panel. So hello and welcome everyone to today's Q&A session on graduate applications in STEM fields. We have with us three really wonderful people who you might have seen in our workshops before. We have Raja Zulkarnain, who is doing a PhD in physics in Metamaterials from University of Milan. We have with us Shivani, who's doing a PhD in psychiatry at University of Oxford. And we have with us Rachana, who did her PhD in material science from Max Planck Institute for solid state research. So thank you so much to the three of you for joining us today. As you all might know, and as I mentioned, it's a Q&A session, so we don't have any presentation for you. We've already done workshops on PhD applications and master's applications. So if you want to have a look at that, if you want to familiarize yourself with that, you can go to our YouTube channel and find recordings of those sessions. This session is supposed to be a Q&A, so for you to just ask your questions about your applications and our speakers will answer them as much as they can. So yes, please feel free to either raise your hand and ask the question or put your questions in chat. Well, people are getting warmed up. Maybe I'll just send a link to our YouTube channel where you can see our previous recordings. Any question about your application, about where you're applying, about your university or country of application? We do keep getting a lot of questions on PhD interviews in the US. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. So, so a bunch of our mentees are now getting responses about their PhD applications and have interviews scheduled. So if any one of you wants to just who has experience wants to give an overview of what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to take that. So I have applied to PhDs in the US and the UK. The process of interviewing is actually quite different, I think, because the course itself is quite different. So in the US, typically, you would do the first 2 years as classes, and then you'd also do rotations in different labs, and then kind of declare your thesis lab midway through your first year, or like midway through your second year, or at the beginning of your second year. So the interview is way more general. It's more about your interests. Typically, you don't have to make a presentation. There's no proposal aspect. It's more just to get to know you and your research interests and whether you would be a good fit for the program. So it's way broader, I would say, and more focused on you, much less technical, versus the interview that I gave at Oxford was based on a proposal that I had written. So the questions were a lot more technical. They had a lot a lot of questions based on my proposal, and then more specifically the skills that I had, and why I wanted to do the PhD was also asked, but the focus was more on the work itself. But yeah, anyone wants to add to that, please feel free.
And there's a follow-up question, I guess, which is just some more advice on how to prepare for these interviews.
So I guess, again, I mean, anyone please contribute. But for me, so I applied for biomedical sciences program in the US, and the interview was three short 20-minute interviews with different people who had different research interests. So I think for the US ones, what would help the most is to have a lot of clarity as to why you're applying for the program and then why you would want to work with certain people you may have mentioned in your application. So, for example, if somebody was working in, say, Alzheimer's disease, rather than say, okay, I'm interested in neurodegeneration, talk about certain specific things that you might be interested in, for example, the underlying mechanisms or, experimental therapeutics or whatever. And then about how that would align with what's going on currently in the university. Um, Versus in the UK, it's a lot more focused. So there you would have to do like a lot of background reading, which you would have done anyway to write the proposal. But yeah, just to go over more specifics of what exactly the proposal is about and the skills that make you prepared to be able to kind of do this work. Because the PhD programs are also a lot shorter. So they would want someone who can kind of hit the ground running without having to do maybe a lot of training. Obviously, the training is will be provided because at the end of the day, every lab works differently and every group has different methods. But yeah, I think that would be just to think about why you're doing this, why this university, why this program, why this project, and just your journey of how you got interested in these things and why you're motivated to do this in your PhD. But yeah, Rachna, um,
Yeah, no, sure. No, that's excellent advice. I just want to add a few things. So actually, last week we were doing PhD interviews in Cambridge. So a couple of things. I think one is one general advice I would give you is actually like prepare in the terms of some questions which you can anticipate. So there are sometimes very general questions asked. Okay, how do you manage your time? Are you good at time management? Are you good at being a team player? Are you things like that? Do you have any other? So apart from the technical skills that Shivani mentioned, and what I think is it's a good idea to have examples ready, or kind of not don't have the answers ready, but have it in your mind. Okay, if I get a question about this, I can actually pull up something from my experience and talk about it to showcase that skill. So that's the opportunity for you to take individual examples from your CV or individual um, experiences from your life and talk about it, because one assumption is that okay, I have submitted so many application materials, I've submitted my CV, my research proposal, of course they have read it. So they have, but they also see a lot of CVs and a lot of application materials, right? So it's kind of a good idea to highlight some things which you want to bring to prominence. And the other advice, what I was thinking was, I don't know if this applies to many of you, but there are certain applications which go directly to a department or to a university, but then there are certain applications which go either to a CDT, as it's called, Center for Doctoral Training, and even, I mean, departments. So you might, because now like research and science is kind of interdisciplinary, you might have a different background, but you might be applying to a different program, or you might be applying to a specific CDT. So kind of prepare for questions related to that department or CDT as well. So for example, if it's a sensors CDT, maybe the work you want to do or your field might not be directly working with sensors, but you will be expected to answer some very technical question on that topic. So it's a good idea to kind of prepare for that.
yeah, and like just to highlight, so I guess everyone talks about experience, but like demonstrable experience is, I think, the most important. So if you've done like even in your not necessarily academic, but for example, if you've done any kind of like say scientific communication or any like applied thing that is still relevant to science and research in general, that's also useful. So definitely highlight that as well, because they do want to see that beyond like a lab or beyond your project itself, that you're willing to help in other side projects and like kind of do other bits and bobs. So yeah.
Okay. We have a few questions in chat. So the first one is it mandatory to contact a professor for PhD in computer science before submitting the application? And if I just mention the name of the professor in the application, I still have some chance to get an acceptance. Maybe you can tell us which university or which country you're referring to, maybe because practices I think vary. So you can be a little more specific and we can respond. But
But I think in general, so for the US, the way I remember it works is um, there's a different admissions committee and there are different faculty professors, right? So you might get an acceptance with or without the professor of your choice, but you might not get a chance to maybe be in their group or work with them. So I think these two are very separate things. So if you really want a chance to like work with someone, I would definitely recommend emailing them before, if they have the space to get a new team member. But yeah, I think the admissions process is separate from that. Yeah.
I also think it depends again, like where you're applying, but I mean, I think you don't lose anything in sending that email. So like even if they don't respond, it's nice to just, send an email and make that introduction because typically in the US, if the person is on the admissions committee, they are not allowed to respond to you because that is a conflict of interest. But if they are not on the admissions committee, a lot of them will respond, and a lot of them are very helpful and like willing to even go through your application materials sometimes. It's definitely a risk, but you don't lose anything in making that sending the cold email. So definitely do. I mean, yeah, I don't think, I mean, I would recommend you do that. um
Yeah.
and mention that these are all universities in the US, so I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, the other question is, oh, the question been deleted?
I think it was about AI resources to prepare for applications.
Yeah.
I'm out of my depth here. There was no AI when I was writing my application.
Uh, Zulkarnain, Shivani, any thoughts on that?
I mean, to be fair, I didn't use any. But I do think that, I mean, I guess it's a useful tool, but I wouldn't advise you copy and paste. It's nice to kind of, I guess, soundboard. And if you want to, say, understand certain people's research better, which is like a little out of your depth, but you feel like you could be interested in it, it can be helpful to help you understand that and like redirect you to other stuff. But again, don't know much about it. So,
I think like you could get some ideas for your first draft out of your like SOP or something, like general idea, not just copy and paste. And sometimes it could be also helpful, like if you are preparing for interview, like what kind of questions you can, use Chat GPT or other sources to, practice and stuff. So it can be helpful. But I don't know, like uh, it's not like you should copy and paste from that, but just use it, a little bit.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, universities now are finding ways to tackle this problem of AI, and they're trying to understand how to assess applications that have used AI to answer their questions or draft their SOP. And so you should be very careful when you use AI. As all of the panelists said, it's fine if you use them just to get ideas or to like grammar check and things like that. But they should not be, portals where you write your whole draft and get complete ideas from. All of that needs to come from you, and maybe they can assist you in some ways. But yeah, but and also like universities are able to assess that and are are now very strict about this because, ChatGPT, I think, has made everyone's life difficult. Um, there was another question that came up, and which is for PhD applications in Europe, do we need to have a confirmation by the professor and the institution, and only after that can we apply for scholarships that are relevant for us, or we wait for the institution to suggest some of their own?
I think it depends on the country you are applying. Like in Italy, here you just apply in university portal, and later you can contact the professor or other. But in other countries, it's better. Like sometimes you contact the professor first and then apply. So I think it varies.
Yeah, just wanted to add to that. I mean, exactly what he said, but certain central funding agencies like Marie Curie or DARD or like a Germany specific, you do need to have confirmation from your supervisor because it's like they have to confirm that they will host you and they have space. So that needs to happen. So it's almost like a joint proposal or a joint application for funding. So yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, just worth mentioning, going back a bit, for the US interview process and like just contacting supervisors. So a lot of the times you would say like be really sold on working with one person, and kind of go into a program thinking that, okay, I will definitely work with them. But just be a little wary of that. That may not always happen. I know of someone, a very close friend of mine. He was very, very sold on working with one person, and they even had space in their lab, but there were a couple of people who wanted to work with them. And so they had to basically make a pick of one between like three or four people. Um, so, like when you're applying, I would say at least have a couple of people who you would be interested in working with, who you can see your work kind of aligning with. That definitely helps just to have like a backup option. Um, I do know that obviously the university also has ways to kind of redirect you if you don't have that. But yeah, just to kind of keep that in mind, it I think is useful.
Sorry, I was saying thank you. So another question that has come up is for scholarship applications that ask for information about the university course, how detailed do you have to be in that answer? So basically, I'm understanding is that if your if your university application also has a scholarship application and that has a question on why you want to do that specific course, then how technical can your answer be about your course and what you want to do and what your proposal is?
So if I understand correctly, it's the scholarship application for the university, and they're asking you why you like course details as in why you want to do the course.
Yeah, so I guess like just for reference, if I'm understanding correctly, I think because we have the University of Reading Felix scholarship applications that are happening now, and so so for University of Reading, the Felix scholarship has two questions on why you want to do that course at University of Reading, and so sort of information that and they I guess expect that you talk about the course and the field, but it's still a scholarship application. You've already made a separate application for your university, and you already have an offer because it's only when you have an offer that you get the Felix scholarship application form. So I guess in that sense, how technical can can the answers be?
I mean, the straight answer is as much detail as you want. Like I think it's up to you how much. I mean, I would say depending on what other questions they are asking, you want to kind of distribute all the information you want to give them across those questions. So yeah, but you can be as detailed as you want to be. I don't think there's anything wrong in that.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, I think the safe thing to do would be to not assume that they've read the actual application that gave you the offer. A lot of the times the scholarship like committee or panel or whatever is independent of the university. And I know like Felix gives scholarships across different universities as well. So I'm not sure how much overlap there is between the two. And obviously the how technical you will be and how personal whatever will also depend on, I guess, how long or how much you're allowed to write. So I mean, it's just about like, do you want to give a very like high level responsive? Obviously that's the only thing that you can do if it's like 100 words, but if it's like 1,000 words, then obviously go into some level of detail. Because I think I mean, the fact that they have asked you to talk about the course means that there will be someone in the panel who has the technical expertise to understand it. So
Yeah.
that would be my assumption, but I don't know.
No, I think that's good advice that you treat it as a fresh application. So don't assume that any information you've given them before is connected to this application.
Yeah, that makes sense. Those are the questions that came to me. Are there any more questions that we have about um, making PhD or master's applications in any of the STEM fields, anything that you're struggling with, even if these are questions about what to say to a specific question on the application form or in the application portal, we can answer that as well. Because we do realize we don't do that many STEM sessions, so this is a good opportunity for you to ask questions that you may not have been able to ask in other sessions because we didn't have a STEM panelist. Um, but yeah, and for the many questions that come to us um, on email or in our WhatsApp group, this also helps take that burden off. Okay, there's a question about plagiarism, but maybe you can be a little more specific about what you mean. Are you referring to how universities check for plagiarism, or are you talking about when you are doing the programs, or just about your essays or dissertation? Maybe if you are a little more specific. But I guess universities have some plagiarism. So the question is that although I'd written my master's application essay on my own, um, it showed that it had 17% plagiarism. So
I think there are a few reasons why this can happen. For example, if it's a very technical essay that you've written, if you've referenced something or if you've taken excerpts from articles or already published material without citing it, that can be one one way that it shows up in your. I mean, the plagiarism is high. The other is kind of Pa yeah, not directly, but like paraphrasing, again, like other published material. So yeah, be careful of that. So in general, don't take like direct excerpts from any already published material would be my advice. But other than that, I'm not sure. I think some plagiarism checks also tell you, I mean, if they tell you, okay, your score is high, then what is your content similar to? So that might be worth checking.
And also I think a certain percentage is allowed, because
Yeah, yeah.
they will kind of write that off as whatever, because there are only that many ways you can say a certain thing, I guess. So yeah.
yeah, so they just sent a follow-up saying that the essay was technical and was running in the news very frequently. So I guess that does say. And yeah, I think if you're using the online plagiarism checkers, then they do tell you, just they do give some sources for where you might have, where they feel it has been picked up from. And if you have cited that already, then it's fine because sometimes they don't check the citation as well. So
Mhm.
if you've picked something up and it's already in quotes and cited, then I don't think you should worry because
Yeah.
that's accounted for. And you should also check how, because usually some percentage of plagiarism is not allowed, but it's that it's seen as like I think 5%. I don't know how much it is, but that much ends up happening because there's only so much new material that you can put or say. Um, so yeah, I think it should be fine. But yeah, I think universities do. Uh, so the follow-up question is 17% fine or should I worry?
Yeah, 17 is a bit high, but as Ms. Bas said, maybe give, like check why is it showing so high? So what in your essay is it claiming that it's plagiarized? Because clearly it's not. So just have a look there.
Yeah, I'd also say 17 is slightly high. I would not say that you should submit an essay if it's showing 17%, but just check if you've cited the material that it's saying is plagiarized. And if you're able to identify the sources and maybe you can then cite it, or if you've picked up quotes but you've not put them in quotations and cited it, maybe just do all of that and I think it should be fine. So another question is, I've already submitted my applications for PhD at a few universities in the US, and I haven't contacted any professor, but I have mentioned names in the application. So should I start emailing them now, or do you think the time has passed to do that?
No, I think it's never too late. You can always contact professors but just make sure you're clear in the email of what you are asking them for. So if it's just an opportunity to work with them, make that clear. And I mean, straight off the bat, just make sure that you've said, okay, I've already applied and things like that. So yeah, but yeah, you can always. It's never too late.
Also, it's just to flag this, but it's not absolutely essential to get in touch with a professor, especially in the US, I think. A lot of the times, I mean, anyway, I think usually the trend is you'll email 20 people and two will respond. There will be a lot of universities where, just contacting people in advance is really not a very important factor in the interview process. But obviously, if you do email them, it's nice because you at least feel like you've done whatever you could. But yeah, I mean, if you have a clear ask, as Rachna said, then yes, you should email them. But obviously, like, just make sure the general housekeeping is there. So don't make it too long. Have like be clear and yeah, mention that you've already made the application.
Yeah. Also, to add one more thing, I think I mean, if at any point in general, but especially at this point, if you're emailing someone, it has to be for a purpose. So I don't think if you, I mean, the chances of you getting a response for a very general email of, oh, I'm so and so, I've made the application and I want to work with you, the chances of getting a response are low. So it, there has to be a specific purpose for you emailing them, and make sure that's included and detailed in the email.
Sorry, there's a few follow-up comments on the plagiarism
Okay.
question. Um, so this essay is for the Oxford Master's application. So I'm guessing the deadline is already passed, or are you going to make an application? Because from what I know, a lot of the Oxford Master's application deadline has gone. So have you already submitted your essay, one? And two is, okay, so you've already submitted. So did the university get back to you to tell you that there's been plagiarism, or did did you just do okay, did your own check? So they're saying that the names of countries, people involved in an agreement, or some geographical areas, etc., were shown as plagiarized.
I mean, it's hard to comment without having the specifics, but I think it's fine. I think this particular person is just too like a very worried, and I can see that why, and it's justified. But I would suggest, if you've submitted it, put it out of your mind now. You know you've not like directly copied stuff. It's fine. It'll be fine.
And also, like when the university does the plagiarism check, they will also see what has been plagiarized. So
Yeah.
if it is very generic, it should be fine, I would say.
Yeah, I would also say that now I don't just forget about it.
Yeah.
Submitted it, and I'm sure you've made a good application. Just don't worry about it now. Um, yeah. And yeah, the university will check if EduAccess what is, and their plagiarism sort of checkers are also much better than the free online versions. So sometimes, the online ones can not will not be that accurate. So their portals or their checkers are much better. So don't worry.
Yeah. I mean, worst case, be prepared to justify if something comes up, or if somebody accuses you of plagiarism, be prepared to justify your essay. But other than that, I think it's highly unlikely that will happen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they are saying that. Thank you, but it bounces on me again and again.
Yeah.
Just
I
goes through.
can understand.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there. I think. Serial overthinking.
Yeah. Especially once the application is made, you're like,
Yeah. That like waiting period, the anticipation is the literal worst thing ever.
yeah.
But I think that can be a general suggestion across the board, that once you've made the application, really just put it out of your mind. It's really not worth it just mulling over it again and again.
Hmm. Yes. So there is another question about so this is you. I've I've got my admission in UMass. Oh, everyone can read the question, so it's not a DM. um, for MS in biomedical science, I'm looking for a scholarship. Can you please mention some so that I can apply early? Okay, I don't know which university this is.
I think that's Massachusetts,
Yeah.
University of Massachusetts.
Okay.
Well, firstly, congratulations on the offer.
Yeah.
Very well done. I mean, so obviously there are a couple of options. One would be to just email the university itself and ask them if they have any options. I think that's usually the easiest because they know your application best because you obviously are applied already and they've given you the offer. And then obviously, so I know India has like INLACs and like some others, uh, and you can explore those as well. Um, I'm not very sure of any other US specific scholarships. I did apply for a PhD at one of the other UMass universities actually, and their PhD ones are fully funded. So I didn't really need to apply. So this is a little out of my depth, but INLACs is a good option. And also just emailing them. Usually the US university admissions offices are quite helpful and they respond quite quickly. So I think that is a good option. But if anyone wants to add to that, then please.
Yeah, no, even I'm not aware of any specific scholarships, but another option for funding is you can, if you have the depth or the breadth for it, you can do like a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship, and that usually means that your professor will take care of, if not all, at least some part of your tuition and stuff like that. So that is another option. So you can either email, as Shivani said, you can either email the admissions office or your department or the professor to ask if there are any kind of such opportunities available.
Or email all of them.
Yeah, of
I
course,
would
all
do
of
like
them.
send as many emails as you can.
But congratulations, yeah, that's really nice. It's a good school.
Yeah, and yeah, so there's INLAGs, there's a few more scholarships. There's Lady Meherbai as well. Um and I'll send a link to our resources page where we've done workshops on these scholarships. It's just that their applications are not open yet, which is why we've not done their workshops this year, but we'll do in the upcoming months. We're going to be doing more workshops on scholarships, so you can join those. And actually, now might be a good time to drop those links. Um, so yeah, so I've sent a link to our YouTube channel, which is where you'll find a recording of today's workshop and also recording of a lot of other workshops that we've done this year, which includes a workshop on PhD applications in STEM fields, where Rachana and Zulkarnain both were panelists with one of our other mentors. And we've done workshops on master's applications as well. We've also done workshops on English language tests, where you'll find Shivani. And then we did a bunch of workshops last year, and for say the INLAC scholarship, for a few other scholarships whose applications haven't opened yet, but you can still have a look at those recordings or just go over the PPT if you want to familiarize yourself with what those scholarships are. So just look at the ones that were done in February, March, April, May, so you know that these are scholarship opportunities that you can still apply for, and their deadlines haven't passed. Then we've also developed application guides for writing your university applications. So if you are still in the process of writing and submitting, then you can have a look at these application guides. These include drafts on writing your CV, SOP, research proposal, and just some guidance on recommendation letters. If you're not a mentee with us and if you have any questions, you can email us at info@projecteduaccess.com. But if you are a mentee, then you know where to reach us. I don't think there's any other questions.
There is actually a question in my chat. I think it's in DM, so I will read it. And just give me
Yes.
1 second. So yeah, it's like I have heard that Italy hasn't a very good opportunity for part-time jobs in tech field, and I didn't apply for my master's there. Uh, for this reason, I wanted to know about how Italy unis are in STEM field in terms of academics. So then there's a reply. I have got two admission. Oh, sorry, just okay. I have offers from UK universities, but I also want to apply to other countries as well. So I was exploring the unis in France, and I was also thinking of Italy. So regarding first question, I think there are good opportunities. I mean, it depends on the city. If you are in some big cities like Milan, Rome, there will be a lot of opportunities. If you are like studying in some remote area or some small town, so obviously the language barrier comes in there. So I think it depends on the city you are applying. In Milan, a lot of opportunities in like engineering and science fields, also in other fields. So I think, and also you can do internship while your master. So here are a lot of tech companies like startups and other companies. So you have a good opportunity here. And in France also, like uh, the main barrier I think which comes in is language. If you can learn language, then a lot of opportunities open up. But still in big cities, so English language is also like quite common, so you can get, I mean, good opportunities here. And regarding UK, I think Rachna or Shivani can talk.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, which was about UK?
Okay, yeah. I have offers from UK unis, but I also want to apply to other countries as well. So I was exploring the unis in France and I am also thinking of Italy. And the first question was like related to job,
Yeah.
part-time job opportunities in tech field.
I
Uh,
mean, go ahead, go ahead.
I don't have much to say. Just that when you come to the UK, obviously on a student visa, you do have a restriction. So you can only work 20 hours per week. And I think that is um, definitely a limiting factor in some ways. I mean, I get the logic behind it is that you've come here to study. And so obviously there should be some limits on how much you can work. Um, to be entirely honest with you, I am not sure how feasible it is to do like a high paying internship on the side because the master's programs here are 1 year long. So there's a huge time crunch and they try to fit in a lot of things in 1 year. Um, Obviously, so the language barrier isn't here, but I guess it also depends on what kind of part-time jobs you want to do. So some and like what master's program you are applying to and where it is. So some courses will give you like a teaching assistant position where you can kind of like help with teaching undergrads and things like that. Some will not have those opportunities, and to be fully honest, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know which offers you've got either, so it'll be a little difficult for me to answer. But having said that, again, like if you email the university, the international admissions offices are usually quite helpful, and they would be able to give you a more realistic picture. They also obviously collect data every year on like how many what percentage of international students undertake part-time work and the nature of that work as well. But yeah, not sure if that's helpful.
Yeah, you pretty much covered it. But the only advice would be just, as Shivani mentioned, just make sure uh, you are aware of the visa restrictions and stuff because they do take that very seriously.
I'd like to add some points. I think like when you are about to finish your masters, you can do internship like I have seen people doing here in Italy, also in France. Like there, the masters is usually divided into like 2 years. M1, they give separate degree for that, and M2. In M2, you have to do a mandatory like internship. You need to work in some company or some lab, so you get paid for that. I think that is a like good option. By the end of the year you can work, but like getting a good job at the start of your masters is a bit hectic. Also you have a lot of courses, so you don't have much time to work at the start, so at the end you can get a lot of like opportunities.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. So I don't think um, im- like master's programs in the UK have this very extensive internship or experience option. So that's more a continental Europe thing.
And they're definitely not paid if they're part of your
Oh
course.
yeah, yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind as well.
If you're, I mean, again, it's hard to know without the specifics, but if it's like a industry experience you want to do and you're in engineering or some of those fields, Germany is also a very good option because, as Zulkarnain also said, uh, you have like a dedicated 6 month or 1 year period where you can intern at a company, um, which is paid, and you get industry experience. The chance of getting a job afterwards at the same company is high. So, and it's all part of the program. So you don't have to kind of, it's not something extra you're doing.
Yeah, I think
And all,
sorry, continue.
yeah, go ahead.
I think the Netherlands has a similar thing. I had a friend who worked at Janssen for like 7, 8 months, and she also got paid for that. So just, yeah, something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think in France there's a rule like if you work more than 3 months with any lab or company, they will pay you definitely. It's a rule there, I guess. And also like you can also suppose you are doing masters in Italy, you could also do internship in other country, in Switzerland, Germany. I had a friend, he was like studying here in Milan and he did his internship from Switzerland, so it's quite flexible. So
Yeah, I think in general, Europe has that flexibility which the UK doesn't offer because of
uh,
Schengen visa. So yeah, don't know why I'm here, to be honest. But yeah, Europe is a good option.
There's a question, which campus is best of UMass? The answer is whichever fits your profile and requirement of the best. So the best program for you doesn't will be dependent on what you want to do. Um, my general advice is, of course, like how well known a university is plays some role, but not as much as we think and not as much importance we give it. So focus on what you want to do.
Yeah, I think the brand matters a lot less in research than what we give credit for. So if especially as an academic experience, I think a lot of the UMass universities are pretty much at par. But look at what your interests are. So for example, for me, I'm interested in clinical neuroscience and like clinical research, so I applied to the medical school, which is UMass Chan, is because they gave me access to a hospital and like hospital resources which I wouldn't have got at other UMass campuses. So it's something, things like that, that you would like what is important for you and what kind of research you want to get involved in, and obviously where the professors are placed, the ones you want to work with. I'm not sure how much value that has in a master's program. So again, you can have a look at that. But yeah, that's basically exactly the same as what Rachana said, but still.
Yeah, that's really helpful, as they're saying in chat as well. I just wanted to say one thing about the question that we were discussing about just part-time work and things like that in the UK. More generally as well, UK is becoming a very difficult place to stay back in. Um, and I mean that's true generally in Europe and US as well. But I guess there's some advantage when you're from a STEM background in the US or perhaps in Europe as well, but in the UK, they are very rapidly changing immigration rules and requirements, and so one, you should keep checking what the latest rule is on whether you can stay back, and just what is the minimum requirement of a salary, whether you can bring dependents and things like that. They're all changing quite fast and becoming stricter and stricter. So a lot of people are thinking of that as well when applying to the UK, because the investment and then the opportunity of staying back is not necessarily matching. But um, yeah, so they just wanted to flag that as well, and do like check what is the latest guideline for you when you're applying, because it has changed substantially since I applied, and I'm guessing it would have since Shivani as well. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge, because well, I did my master's in 2019 and like I applied for PhD, like I started my PhD in 2023. So there was like a significant gap. And I think things have changed a lot, especially with like the graduate route visa and things like that. I mean, sure, it gives you 2 years, but you have to pay for it. It also doesn't count towards your number of years you've lived in the UK to apply for like the permanent residence permit and like the citizenship and stuff like that. So there are a lot of restrictions. Um, but yeah.
yeah. There's one question. Are there any scholarships for women in STEM in Italy or France or generally in Europe?
Mm, I'm aware of one. It's called it's by the Schlumberger Foundation, and that's specifically for women from developing countries in STEM. So that's a good one. But other than that, I think there's another one which is the L'Oreal. But I don't know if that's Italy or France. It was definitely applicable in the UK. But Schlumberger is a good like very specific demographic.
Can you spell those?
Yeah, I don't know if they have what is their timeline. So it's by this foundation. I don't know if they what is their timeline, but I remember they had very specific. This was their kind of target. Yeah.
That's interesting. We will also see if we can do a session on this if
Yeah.
relevant. Is this the L'Oreal UNESCO Ireland?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that one. But I don't know who it's applicable for.
I don't know if it's still available because
It wasn't when I was looking last year.
Okay.
It's available now. I'm going to be a little mad, but it's okay.
but they did that for INLACs as well. I think during the pandemic they didn't give INLACs. Oh, so there is 2023 call for application. So maybe it'll, but
Yeah, I applied like the
oh,
year, previous year. So
their applications open in October, and
Yeah,
this,
that will be for the next. Yeah. So for the current year, I think they're already
but the website doesn't say that if they opened it for this year because the last call for applications is 2020 to
3.
start in 2023. So basically,
Oh, okay.
applications opened 17 October to December 2022.
Okay. Some of them, I mean, like the better ones, of course, they have the more famous ones. They have very updated websites and already kind of timelines in advance. But it's worth keep checking it because sometimes they announce it at very short notice.
Yeah, sorry, I think I was not looking at the L'Oreal one. I was looking for Women in Science Scholarship, which is I think different. But anyway, I'll look into this more, and if we find something, we'll definitely do a session on this.
I think there are also restrictions every year. I think they change them, like on citizenship. I'm not sure if I'm thinking of the same one, but there was one in which they changed like the citizenship of the applicants changes like every year or something. So there was some like eligibility criteria. And then, of course, like a lot of them, for example, I was not eligible for because I had already done one degree um, outside of India. So, yeah, there are like a bunch of criteria.
Okay. Think. Yeah, we'll also keep looking, but this is nice. Okay, I think that's it. And we're also at the end of our hour. So I think we can end the session now. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I have already put links to some resources that might be helpful, so please have a look in chat. And yeah, you'll find a recording of today's session also in on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Rachana, Shivani, and Zulkarnain for joining us on a Sunday and speaking to our mentees and for constantly supporting us and being there. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who joined us. All the best with their applications. And yeah,
Yeah.
see you.
Thank you, Ms. Ba.
Good luck,
Good
everyone.
luck. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.